Top of the morning to you, Rock Creek Fellowship. Perhaps you've heard of him. Perhaps you yourself have, like the rest of America, been, shall we say, intrigued by this man whose blood smells like cologne, who every time he goes for a swim, dolphins appear. If he were to mispronounce your name, you'd be tempted to change it. Who, when he opens up a fortune cookie, it simply says, congratulations. If he were to hit you in the face, you'd be tempted to thank him. People, it is said, hang on his every word, even the prepositions. He can speak French and Russian. He is quite simply the world's most interesting man. We have a man like that in our congregation. You may know him. I hope you do. His name is Dick Griffith. He's my neighbor, part of our Lula Lake congregation. And just yesterday, a woman who had already told me how flabbergasted she was. Flabbergasted, which is a perfect word, at the strenuous, continuous, and heartening care she had received from within our congregation after surgery. She said, people don't have time to be taking care of me like this. And then she heralded to me Rock Creek's most interesting man in the world, Dick Griffith, and said, that man is such a servant. He's Meal on Wheels in the morning, bringing food over here, and on Thursdays he's a taxi taking me to physical therapy. I mention it because we live in a time when people are lonely. We live in a time, as some have called it, a culture of hell. The church is called to be a little colony of heaven in a culture of hell. Hell being a state, as C.S. Lewis once said, where you could imagine that everyone has a grievance. Everybody's concerned about his own advancement, his own dignity. That should sound like a familiar description to you when you think about what we hear, what we listen to, how we act sometimes. But the scriptures envision our community being a circulatory system of God's grace, and that is why even as we think about justice, as we've been walking through the book of Micah, we should be thinking about the idea of letting people on the fringes, people who long, like Anne Lamott once said, to wear the hat of belonging. We should think about, how do we get people in the community of faith? Because as John Perkins once said, the poor don't just need your used clothes. They need other things. They need somebody who's going to fuss over them, just like you do. They need somebody who will take their troubles on them and spend time that they don't have for them. That'll say, you matter. So that they can say, I'm flabbergasted. People don't have time to be spending this much effort on me. So that they can say, look at what a servant that person is. I hope you'll think about that today as we enter into this Holy Week. You'll think about what we talked about on Sunday, this ministry of invitation. There's so many people in the world who would do something if they were invited to. There's so many things you have gotten to participate in your life because, quite simply, you were invited, and we serve a God of invitation who says, come to me. Whoever comes to me, I will never drive away. Who offers to let us entrust ourselves to him. And I'd urge you on this Friday to think about inviting someone this week to come to church with you on Sunday, or to come with you on Easter, or to the Good Friday service. To invite people in to belong into this community, this circulatory system of God's grace, where they too might be flabbergasted, where they might meet the most interesting people in the world, people in whom Jesus Christ is active, where he's taken up residence, people who know that commonly what binds us is this: we've been acted upon by the one whose sacrifice has righted the world. He is the most interesting man in the world. It's worth thinking about today. Let us be a little colony of heaven in a culture of hell. See ya.